Guterres said in reaction to rising global temperature, we are on a highway to hell, to which the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, would also say, in the process, let us earn a clean ticket to heaven. Between these two dichotomies, there is hope. Hope that we can make a difference using all the instruments at our disposal. Our keynote speaker is not unaware, neither is he daunted by the continent's enormous challenges. Each day he lives and he breathes risk. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, kindly give a very warm Dubai welcome this morning to the President of the African Development Bank, Africa's Optimist-in-Chief, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina.
Thank you very much, Victor, and good morning to you all. First, let me thank you very much, Cindy, for being here, the Executive Director of the World Food Program, a great partner of ours, Ibrahim Shengdung, it's good to see you, Mr. Director General of the AC, and all the excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming for this event. And as we talk about this event today, we have to realize that we are living through climate shocks. And when you go through climate shocks, it means that you have to insure yourselves. And therefore, I want to talk a little bit about the issue of how we insure Africa in the face of climate shocks. Africa certainly did not cause climate change, as it accounts for only 3% of cumulative carbon emissions, but it is suffering disproportionately from its negative impacts. With the continent losing $7 to $15 billion a year due to climate change, and that is estimated to rise to $50 billion by 2030. Yet while Africa receives only $11 billion for adaptation, its needs are essentially 10 times that. Now, the most vulnerable in Africa to climate change are certainly the farmers of Africa. Unlike farmers in Europe or United States or developed economies, African farmers grow their crops under dryland farming without irrigation, as only 6% of arable land in Africa is actually irrigated. Over 90% of farmers in Africa do not have agricultural insurance. Their only insurance is to pray. Pray when they plant that it will rain. Pray when they harvest that there will not be rains or pest infestation or devastation. They pray when they are marketing their crops, that their prices will not also collapse. I'm sure that God also expects that we should not just jam the prayer lines. Victor, you were talking about heaven and all that, but don't jam the prayer lines in heaven just because of things that you can actually fix yourself. I think in this particular case, all we have to do is to support the farmers, not abandon them in the face of rising frequency and intensity of losses from extreme weather events, from droughts, floods, and pest infestations. And that is why the African Development Bank has been implementing the Africa Disaster Risk Insurance Facility called ADRIFI, which support countries to insure themselves against these weather-related shocks. The bank has established an ADRIFI multi-donor trust fund, which received $55 million of support from the governments of Canada, Switzerland, United States, and of course, United Kingdom. I'm deeply grateful to all of our donors for all this support. And of course, we work very closely with the Africa Risk Capacity, whose Director General is here, and thank you for all the great work that you all do. Today, this facility has supported 15 countries with about $100 million to pay their insurance premiums. And that has protected 1.5 million people with sovereign risk insurance. The Africa Risk Capacity has been a key player and partner in this for the African Development Bank, and you are all doing a great job, which we appreciate. So thank you very much. Now, it really works when drought hit Malawi, payouts were actually made to Malawi of $14 million to support their farmers through the Africa Risk Capacity. When droughts and tropical cyclones hit Madagascar 3 years consecutively, it received $15 million from the Africa Risk Capacity to cover payouts for losses incurred by the farmers. However, to achieve higher coverage, lower premiums, and assure sustainability, several issues need to be addressed. We need to ensure that farmers and actors along the value chains are covered by insurance at scale. The number of countries needing support to co-pay their insurance premiums has increased, especially given the tightening of the fiscal space becoming so challenging for many of these countries with rising debt levels. There is need also to pool insurance across several countries and regions for risk diversification of portfolios. The local and regional insurance companies in Africa also need to be fully involved to reinsure on international markets. And that is why the African Development Bank unveiled what we're doing today, which is the Africa Climate Risk Insurance Facility for Adaptation, or ACRIFA, which builds on the achievements to date of the Africa Disaster Risk Insurance Facility. ACRIFA will mobilize $1 billion of concessionary financing, high-risk capital, and grants to de-risk private sector investments across agricultural value chains. It will systematically support the African insurance industry, and some of the CEOs of that are actually here today, to unlock financing for investments in climate-smart and green technologies. It will strengthen local insurers and foster integration with national and international reinsurers. That way, they will retain a significant share of the business value in Africa and further catalyze the growth of the insurance market. To achieve this, ACRIFA will focus on 5 strategic areas. First, it will leverage the network of private primary insurers across Africa, ensuring that capital and commercial opportunities flow through them to continental and international reinsurers. Second, it will help to overcome the cost of client acquisition through aggregation and geographic diversification. Third, it will support the design and scaling of climate insurance solutions, covering a range of risks, including production, drought, flood, pest, credit, and of course, price risks. Fourth, it will facilitate public sector efforts to create an enabling policy and regulatory environment, as well as strengthening data, digital, and human capacity required to meet these goals. And fifth, it will mobilize climate financing, especially concessional blended financing, high-risk capital, and grants. Dear friends, the success of ACRIFA will depend on strategic partnerships, and that's why I really want to thank you all for coming out today for this particular event. And I'm also very pleased that we have several insurance companies here, and you're all going to be in the panel talking about this, as well as several development partners that are here today to discuss how we can build strong and effective partnerships to deliver on ACRIFA. Together, let us build a robust insurance ecosystem that will insulate farmers and actors along the agricultural value chains from the effects of climate change. The eyes of over 40 million smallholder farmers in Africa are on us. Let us make ACRIFA the real answer to their prayers. Thank you very much and welcome again.
Many thanks, Dr. Additioner, for that short keynote and for helping us set the stage for what will no doubt be a very robust conversation moving forward. Now, Africa remains the single, or rather, agriculture remains the single most important activity on the continent. And it has everything that it needs. Abundant arable land, plentiful water, abundant human resources. But there's one thing that is in inadequate supply, and that's sufficient enough risk insurance. With that being said, I would like to invite a very special guest whose organization really is at the heart of global food production and farmer support. She'll come out in a moment, but kindly allow me to introduce someone who really needs no introduction, but that is part of our protocol here today. Cindy McCain is the Executive Director of the World Food Programme. She has a distinguished, decades-old track record in humanitarian and development work, especially in combating malnutrition, hunger, and poverty eradication. She really has been pivotal in WFP's response to the ever-increasing global food crisis, and her efforts singularly in global resource mobilization and partnership on behalf of WFP, especially within the context of climate change impacts on agriculture, and the experiences and efforts that she's helped mobilize continentally are in sync with the goals of ACRIFA today. This morning, here in Dubai, at COP28, kindly give an extremely warm welcome to Cindy McCain as she comes to the podium.
Thank you. I'll try to speak a little loud so you all can hear from here. Mr. President, Excellencies, I'm so pleased to see all of you, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to be with you and an honor to be talking about this subject for me. The climate crisis is affecting agricultural communities all across Africa and threatening the livelihoods of millions of smallholder farmers. They need our support to adapt their farming and storage practices and to access new financing and technologies. At the World Food Programme, we're excited by our growing partnership with the African Development Bank, which is allowing us to offer more support to governments as they respond to the climate crisis. And we welcome ACRIFA, the African Climate Risk Insurance Facility for Adaptation. This program will play an important role in protecting smallholders, pastoralists, and small businesses from climate shocks. WFP's successful experience working with African Risk Capacity, or ARC initiative, shows how these climate financing facilities can be transformative. Hatuma, one of WFP's beneficiaries in southern Mali, is a perfect example of this. She's a 75-year-old widow and a smallholder farmer. After a catastrophic drought in 2021, she barely had enough crops to feed her family. But WFP used a $7 million payout from our ARC replica policy to make cash payments to Hatuma and many other farmers. The $140 Hatuma received helped feed her family during this crisis period and buy a solar panel for her home. Now, working with the African Development Bank and the ACRIFA program, I hope we can ensure many more African farmers will benefit from similar protection. We are already working together to identify investment cases for micro and macro insurance coverage across the continent. WFP is fully committed to putting our expertise and experience behind this important initiative. I'd like to share 3 lessons that WFP has gleaned after working on climate risk insurance solutions for more than a decade. First, the value of climate risk insurance goes far beyond the payouts provided to farmers. These programs also support financial inclusion and the take-up of new farming tools and technologies, such as crop diversification and regenerative farming practices. Second, insurance schemes are most cost-effective when they're integrated with other disaster risk management and financing solutions. The Global Shield Against Climate Risks, launched at last year's COP meeting, can complement the protection that will be offered through the ACRIFA program. Third, governments need to be in the driving seat when it comes to designing and choosing their national risk financing strategies. They know best how to manage the specific risks they face. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, WFP stands ready to work with governments and offer our technical expertise to support implementation of ACRFA so we can drive progress on this critical issue. Together, we will build stronger systems to protect African farmers and African food systems against the impacts of climate change. WFP strongly supports this initiative, and thank you for having me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Cindy McCain, Executive Director, World Food Program, for your strong support and for sharing 3 important lessons about risk insurance. She does have a meeting in the next few moments and has to leave us a little bit too early. Thank you very much for being here bright and early this morning. Our next speaker, Mrs. Bogolo Keniwendo, is the Special Advisor and Africa Director to the UN Climate Change High-Level Champion, representing Mahmoud Mohideen. She was previously Botswana's Cabinet Minister of Investment, Trade and Industry, and she is a member. She's not here today. Okay, I gather she's not in the room. That's good. We will move along. So, that brings me to our next speaker, who really has had a huge impact on the continent. Our next speaker brings very, very significant and diverse, decades-old international development experience to his current position as Director General of the Africa Risk Capacity ARC Group, an African Union specialized agency. ARC is Africa's leading climate reinsurer, and it advances climate risk insurance across Africa. Its work is crucial to mitigating the impacts of climate-related disasters. The Africa Risk Group is also a leading partner in driving impactful climate insurance across the continent. Please welcome to the podium my friend, my brother, Sheikh Ibrahim Diong, the United Nations Assistant Secretary General and Director General of the Africa Risk Capacity Group.
It is always a pleasure to see my good friend Victor as a moderator. The president is not here, but let me begin by expressing our gratitude to the president of the African Development Bank. We call him at ARC the advocate-in-chief of ARC because of his strong call to action, but also support of what we do. I wanted to make 3 points within the 5 minutes allocated to me as a speaker. Just to recognize the importance of the conversation today is such that I'd like to begin by expressing our support in the initiative ACRFA because they could not come at a better time given the discussions taking place on loss and damage, but also the way to meet the demand in Africa. I think the first point I want to make, about 10 years ago, when the concept of ARC was launched, many people were actually doubtful that parametric insurance is something that can work in Africa for a number of reasons. The culture of insurance is not embedded in public policy in many African countries. Second, a lot of people felt maybe parametric insurance in terms of the premium financing, the lack of affordability will make it extremely difficult to be successful. And then third, whether we are making progress, particularly on the product that we offer to the extent that actually countries were willing to take it. So fast forward 10 years later, those doubts are gone because we've proven through ARC that indeed it can be done successfully. It can be done by providing, as of today, $1 billion worth of coverage, about $150 million of payout, but more importantly, 100 million people actually protected across Africa. And that is something that we should all be proud of as a collaboration at ARC. I think the second point I want to make, and this was actually highlighted at COP27, the global climate crisis can only be addressed by global solidarity, and that is that ARC alone cannot do it. And that is why I'm delighted to see in the room the different players that made ARC a possibility, and that is the WFP ED is not here. What many did not actually know, ARC actually has seen the day because of the support of WFP, because there are the few organizations that believe in ARC 10 years ago, so therefore this is really an example of global solidarity. If you look at ARC today, I could not think of a better example of coming together as a group. Number one, we belong to the African Union, so therefore there's an African leadership behind our institution. Second, we are administered by WFP with the support of the UN, but we benefit from the support of many bilaterals in the room, but also the member states as well. I think this is something that we should celebrate as a way of coming together. My last point is, where do we go from here, particularly within the context of loss and damage and ACRIFA? If we were to scale up what needs to happen so that we can actually protect the people. Number one, diversify our coverage. It's not just about sovereign. It's about humanitarians, as Victor said earlier, but also smallholder farmers, so that we can reach as many people as possible across Africa. So I hope with ACRIFA and what you bring to the table allows us to meet the demand by actually scaling up and meeting the demand. Second, disaster does not mean the same thing to all of our countries. It's a multi-hazard situation we're dealing with. So if you're offering only drought, you may not actually meet the demand of the continent, so therefore multi-hazard, tropical cyclone, flood, outbreak epidemic, and other disasters are extremely critical in making sure when we talk to Africa, we talk to the demand as opposed to other things that we're concerned about. So I'm hoping with ACRIFA, not only we can diversify our product offering, but we can also improve data management so we can have reliability on the product that we offer. The business we're in, credibility matters. So it's important that we do that and do successfully. I think third, it's been said time and time again, the affordability, the accessibility, and the availability of premium finance. It's such, if you want to scale up, we need to provide the subsidies required so our countries can actually afford the premium. And I'm delighted with the African Development Bank, with the partners in the room, we're able to actually provide the kind of support so that we can make what we offer available, but also affordable to our countries. Today, at ARC, one of the gaps we need to fill in is working with the local African private insurers. And that's why I'm delighted to see that the next panel is about African reinsurers and insurance market, so we can bring in the local content so we can truly have what you call African to African problems. So I'm looking forward to that conversation. Hopefully we'll get all insights on that. I think last but not least, it is extremely important as we do that, we remember there is a human face to climate change, and that is the millions of Africans across the continent that need to be protected. So I'm hoping that we can get reminded that perspective so we can tell the stories of the impact we have across Africa by what we do, because ultimately, climate change has a human face, the extreme weather condition is getting worse, so we need to have that in mind. So having said that, let me renew once again our support to ACRIFA and looking forward to working closely with the African Development Bank to make sure no one is left behind at a time of crisis. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sheikh Ibrahima Diong, for sharing a few highlights of ARC's work and for really touching on so many salient points. Thank you for your strong support for ACRIFA, very much appreciated. And you did hit the nail on the head when you said this is representative, symbolic of African collaboration. At the end of the day, there are too few of us trying to do so much. So I want to use this opportunity to salute your leadership and ARC's innovative role over the years in this regard, and look forward to the ARC WFP Aquifer partnership that would take us to the next level in terms of climate risk insurance. Thank you very much. Once again, please give our dear brother, Sheikh Ibrahim Diong, a warm round of applause. Just arrived. Okay. All right, there's going to be a slight switch before we go to the panel discussion. I gather that our previous speaker has just arrived. So with that being said, I'm going to make the necessary introduction. My brother, thank you very much for joining us, and have a great rest of COP. All right. I'm assuming that we're good to go. If not, we do have to transition to the expert panel if our next speaker has not come into the room. Okay, with that being said, we're going to transition to the expert panel. Again, kindly forgive me for that. I'm going to invite right now to the platform to join me right over here, Mrs. Hope Moreira, the Managing Director and CEO of ZEP Re and board member of ACRE Africa. Please join me on the podium. Hope Moreira will be joined by Mr. Hassan Bashir, founder, Takaful Insurance of Africa Group, and senior advisor, Aquifer. Next will be Mrs. Bridget Gaynor, Global Head, Public Affairs and Policy, Aon. Ms. Michelle Kagari, Head of Government Relations, One Acre Fund. And Mrs. Kate Callott, CEO, Amini Al. AI rather. While the podium is still being set up, I'm going to yield the podium to our previous speaker, who has been introduced twice, but has actually just come in. We will extend grace this morning, considering the amount of preparation that has gone into being here this morning. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please welcome Mrs. Bogolo Keniwendo, the Special Advisor and Africa Director to the UN Climate Change High-Level Champion, representing Dr. Mahmoud Din. She has a brief speech to make. The podium is yours.
So ordinarily, I'm not this sweaty. I promise I'm usually a better-looking human being and less sweaty, but this morning has been a little crazy. So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good to see familiar faces. I am speaking on behalf of Dr. Mahmoud Muhyiddin, who has been a strong supporter of Aquifer since inception. So last year at COP27, we were happy to support a number of insurance companies and the insurance industry in Africa that were for the first time going to support and ensure that they cover extreme climate shocks. Now, what we have gone on to know as the Nairobi Declaration for Sustainable Insurance and its members have been working tirelessly in the last couple of years to ensure that they are serving three purposes in the market. And those purposes are not just in the commercial sense, but it's recognizing their role as a corporate citizen and their role in maintaining and building resilience and adaptive capacity. And also in unlocking and supporting the flow of finance in developing markets. And what we have seen in the last year was a model that was aimed at covering cumulatively about $14 billion worth of losses. Now, we recognize the role that the insurance industry can play in unlocking finance. We recognize that this is incremental progress, while we are at the same time looking for ambitious Big Bang progress. These two are not mutually exclusive. The way we see it, while you are painting a bigger picture and you can see it, you absolutely need those small dots that bring everything together. And this is why we are proud to support the launch of ACRIFA and the implementation of ACRIFA. It is important that we ensure that ACRIFA is seen also as a supportive measure to the Loss and Damage Fund, and that those developments that will happen, and I'm glad that in day one, within an hour, we've already seen close to $500 million being committed. But this is $500 million only of a couple hundreds of trillions that we need to finance adaptation and resilience, in particular in Africa. So we're hoping that the developments that emanate from the Loss and Damage Fund are adequately integrated into the strategy of ACRIFA and other future de-risking initiatives that are embarked on by the Nairobi Declaration on Sustainable Insurance and the partners, particularly AFDB. And by engaging with insurers and reinsurers around the globe, the champions offer partnership with regional insurance organizations, providing a space for more radical collaboration. We are particularly looking forward to opportunities that will unlock. It's a morning of shock and awe. Okay, because as it stands, less than 40% of what is stated in the NDCs is for adaptation and resilience. And we know very well that well over 70% of what's spent in adaptation and resilience is paid for through national budgets. So it is important that initiatives like these come on to leverage to reduce the impact of adaptation, paying for adaptation from national budgets, and to reduce further the national debt crisis that we experience. So ladies and gentlemen, mine was just to come and state our support, particularly in the position of His Excellency Dr. Mahmoud Muhyiddin as the UN Climate Change High-Level Champion. He wishes to champion this initiative, to partner with you and to crowd in other partners, particularly in the private sector, to de-risk doing business in Africa as it's seen as an extremely climate vulnerable space. It is important for today's generations and tomorrow's generations. Thank you and good morning.
Many thanks, Mrs. Bogolo Keniwendo, for your invaluable inputs and the expressed strong support. Thank you. Your inputs definitely are invaluable to us. Well, we're going to move on to our expert panel. Everybody is right on the platform. So I'm going to start with Michelle Kagari. Now, One Acre Fund actually aggregates more than 1 million farmers across East Africa and Southern Africa, providing farming inputs on credit and a wide range of critical services. From your experience and based on the work that you're doing, how critically important is risk insurance for farmers to mitigate climate? I don't think we can. Let's try and see if we can. Well, let's see if we can check whether or not your microphone is on.
Try.
Can we adjust the microphones, please? Okay, let's give it a try. If not, just hand us a handheld microphone quickly, please. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, you're right. One Acre Fund provides bundle services to farmers, and we are one of the largest insurance facilitators in Eastern Africa, serving over 1.4 million farmers with insurance products. Insurance is absolutely critical in building resilience for farmers, meaningful resilience. Obviously, we've got other interventions, but some shocks farmers are not able to bounce back from if they don't have a safety net. And insurance helps to do that, to provide that safety net. The other critical role that insurance plays is in driving adoption. What we have found is that when we provide bundled services that includes insurance, this does incentivize increase of investment with farmers. A key barrier to adaptation is cost and going into debt. So if a farmer doesn't have that safety net, they are not going to put in the investment to increase productivity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. But what kind of challenges do the farmers face, particularly those who could benefit from what AGRIFA has to offer?
Thank you for that. There are three big challenges that we have observed, and these are to do with the value. So premiums are expensive, and the kind of payout that farmers would get are not commensurate with the loss that they suffer. And this is a key barrier when it comes to adoption of insurance products. The second key challenge that we have seen is on accuracy. And this is with regards to both spatial accuracy and temporal accuracy. So like, for example, we were collecting data in Malawi, and because the threshold for when a payout will be triggered is based on average loss. But that's not what actually happens in reality. You'll find that some farmers have actually increased productivity, while another farmer within the same spatial area has suffered a catastrophic loss. And they will not be able to get the payout. And then with the temporal accuracy, what we have found is that farmers will be getting the payout well after they need it. And a lot of the farmers that we work with, that has a devastating impact in terms of driving them into food insecurity, plus also immediate concerns of being able to purchase inputs for the next season. The third key challenge that we have found is structural. So as has already been mentioned, in Africa, which is crazy because that's where there's so much vulnerability, there are hardly any government subsidies that would make insurance more affordable. And this is actually one of the roles where I think the AGRIFA facility would really, really help. And then secondly is supporting investments to design insurance products for the reality of a smallholder farmer, and price insurance products for the reality of a smallholder farmer. So one of the things that we're doing, and we're really looking forward to the AGRIFA facility coming in, is to provide that kind of investment so that the insurance industry, and in particular local actors, because local actors are able to identify like the real needs of the farmers and design for that, and also design guardrails and policies so that any subsidies actually provide meaningful safety nets to smallholder farmers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Since you're talking about local players, let me go over to Mr. Hassan Bashir over here. You've actually founded an insurance brokerage company and an insurance underwriting company. Plus, you've been involved in the industry for many, many years. So my question to you is, what do you find most appealing about AGRIFA?
What I found the most appealing about AGRIFA is really the fact that it's focused on the primary insurance market in the African continent. Over 26 years of underwriting and in the insurance space, serving associations and different training institutions in the industry. I have not seen a facility that has focused on the aggregation of insurers across the continent, especially at the primary level. The appeal of AGRIFA is that it is touching those things that make that make it harder or impossible for underwriters to price correctly, to design products that serve the farmer, and to be able to scale to a level that makes business sense. Acrifa is focused on that space. That's what is very appealing about it.
So what is it going to take for your company or companies to invest strategically in upscaling climate risk insurance for farmers?
Okay, so the primary insurance market, or the insurance market as a whole, is not shy to carry risk. It's shy to carry small, dispersed, and volatile risk. Once you are able to aggregate risk to a level that makes business, then insurers carry it. I mean, ACK is in the room, carry very big risks. A lot of other insurance may be here. The key challenge in the insurance market in Africa has been because of the dispersed nature of farmers, the accounts that come to companies are really not significant. It doesn't make business sense. The acquisition cost is very high, so aggregation is a problem. So hopefully with facilities like Acrifa that touches the nodes that really matter to the primary market, we will be able to aggregate farmers, bring them together on a large scale. If I give you an example, for example, there are quite a number of risks that the industry insures now traditionally that are very high risk and loss-making. Motor insurance is one of them. Medical insurance is one of them. Engineering is loss-making. All of those are insured across the globe. Why? Because the scale of the business makes sense. Agri-risk does not make sense because it comes in small amounts and is very expensive to acquire.
Yet the need is huge.
Yeah, yet it is huge. The estimation is that Africa could do anywhere between 10 and 18 billion in agri-insurance. And that is against an overall premium of about 70 billion. Here you can see the scope, the size. Africa writes about 70 billion US dollars in premium. Agri alone could do 18 billion, but we don't do that now.
Well, thank you very much, Hassan, for your input. I'm going to come to Hope Moreira. As an Africa reinsurer and market developer, what is ZEPRI currently doing to support efforts to de-risk meso-level investments in climate risk insurance? What are you guys doing?
Thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes,
Thank you very much. Let me first echo previous speakers. Congratulations to the African Development Bank for this leadership. I think we've all been, players in this sector have all been looking for big brothers stepping up and helping us aggregate the many initiatives that are on the continent. ZEPRI is a Pan-African institution with a public DNA. Our owners are member states. African Development Bank is one of our major shareholders, actually. And when I hear people talking here, it's very great to hear that. I mean, we support One Acre Fund. We are one of their insurers. We partner with WFP in Ethiopia because they are very strong with the cooperatives. So the experience we've had is that there are few key things that we need to do to get that right. Indeed, like Hassan has said, you need to aggregate it. Insurance is about the law of numbers, yeah? Mm-hmm. You need to get the numbers, you need to scale. You need to use technology to reduce the cost and reach many people. And luckily, we are in a season and time where we can do that through mobile penetration. We need to aggregate capacity, about bringing together insurers, but bringing together reinsurers as well. And building a distribution channel that really works. So what are I'll just give two examples of the things we have done over the last 8 years or so. One is that through our subsidiary, ECA Africa, which is Agriculture Climate Risk Enterprise, we work with aggregators like seed companies, right? The seed calls Yala, Syngenta, across Africa, to be able to do indeed the bundling and help the aggregation. But it doesn't make sense if the farmers don't have access to credit. So we've extended that to working with banks. So right now, we have about 10 banks we're working with. Last year early this year was a great year that we paid $200,000 to a bank in smallholder farmers funded by a bank in Tanzania. So it is an ecosystem, and what we are looking at is which are those points? Who are the 1 acre fund? Where are the World Food Programs? And we've created that as something that, and it's scaled. We've covered over 3.5 million farmers. We are on track to cover 10 million farmers by 2030.
So with regards to ACRIFA, what is it that ACRIFA can do within the context of agriculture and the millions of African farmers? What is it that ACRIFA can do to enhance the relationship between primary insurers and reinsurers across the continent, just from your experience?
Right, so one of the conversations we are having is about capacity building. How do we bring capacity building within all these sectors? We are doing our bit as the ZEPRI Academy. It's not enough, right? We've talked about data. How do we get data so that we price correctly? The other biggest elephant in the room is the cost of getting satellite data for the kind of products that we need to do, because these have to be index products, right? So you need data. It's costing percentages, 3%, 4%, 5% of the total premiums. That's not acceptable. That's a good investment that ACRIFA will look into, I'm sure. And technologies, the digital platforms that are really required to link at regional, continental level, because right now what we have is either country level or regional level. We run another project called Drive, which is funded by the World Bank for the Horn of Africa. And we've seen the difference of bringing 4 or 5 countries together. Mm-hmm. So already the attraction it brings to private capital. You have the global reinsurers now seeing that there is need. So incapacitating the local markets, incapacitating regulators to put in the right policies, investing in digital platforms, helping create the aggregation. So we have cooperatives in some areas like Ethiopia that is working very well. But in Kenya, we have smaller groups that we have to bring together and build that ecosystem. So there is quite a lot that can be done, and we're looking forward to working with ACRIFA to make this happen.
Thank you very much, Hope Moreira, for an excellent contribution there. I'm sure ACRIFA representatives in the room are listening, and thank you, everyone, for your interventions. So far, we're going to come to Bridget Gaynor. I'd like for you to share with us, from a global perspective, inputs on market and product development and the application of knowledge, research, and innovation on managing frontier and transition risks. Let's deal with that first.
Wonderful. So thank you very much for having me. And like everyone has said, the role and presence of ACRIFA is a game changer. But it's only one of the game changers that I think is important to recognize. The reference was to data. So the data that we have been working on that has become available with the developments of Amini is incredible. The aggregation of the 1 acre fund, and then the kind of the local knowledge and the local aggregation of risk on the ground, all of those things come together. Aon is a broker, and so what you can think about is we're in the middle of a set of spokes in a wheel, and we can kind of amplify the strengths of each of the spokes. Part of what we are able to do is really 2 big things. One is take the data and the aggregation and pull those together, because you're right, insurance is just a law of numbers. The greater number of risks, the more diverse they are, the more likely people are going to do to put a bet upon it. But once you aggregate that data, we can take what is produced on the ground by Amini and the satellite data and translate it into the language that the capital and risk markets need to hear. And the incredible progress that has been made with Amini is that the level of confidence in the data for crop insurance has increased exponentially. So Aon's the largest broker of crop insurance around the world. So every country you can imagine subsidizes their farmers. This isn't just an issue in Africa. In the United States, it's a massive subsidy for farmers. All it is the protection of income. So once you can get to enough aggregation, you have the data present, and then you have this government partnership to help share some of the burden on premium cost, then you've got this risk that can come together. And the interesting thing for us at this moment in time in the climate transition is that there are an entire new group of players who are focusing on this first mile of agricultural stability in Africa. The major food companies, Mars, Mondelez, Nestle, and others, realize that their supply chain is vulnerable. They need to create greater protection and access to that supply chain. At the same time, they want that supply chain to be of lower carbon because their regulators and their governments, their consumers, their bankers, they're all asking for a lower carbon product. So the incredible kind of confluence right now, to me, that's amazing that's happening is you've got better data, you've got incredibly sophisticated aggregation on the ground where that trust has been built up by organizations like 1 Acre with farmers. You've got the capacity on the ground to distribute the risk, to do the policies, to distribute the capital. And you have a demand driver from businesses that might have been a purchaser of the supply chain, but maybe with less focus. And so our role is to bring all those things together and help to create the type of coverage that really that lowers the risk for farmers. Because we can't ask people to adopt regenerative practices on water or fertilizer or carbon unless we have secured their income and protected their family. Once you've created crop insurance, which is, again, just like everywhere else in the world, income protection for farmers, then you can start to say, now I want to reduce the carbon output of that product.
So in short, what really is the potential of the carbon market for financing insurance, particularly for dealing with climate change adaptation? What's the potential of the carbon market?
I think that the opportunity is high if people believe that it's real. And so that's the thing. I mean, this is an asset that is new on the scene. It doesn't have 50 years of valuation and trading, but with greater satellite imagery and with a couple of other things that are in the ecosystem. You know, there are insurance products for the output of carbon. You can, buy insurance to determine that your output of carbon is there. There are rating agencies that says, yes, this carbon investment that I made is real, so I can put it on my financial statements. I think the future is bright for carbon, but it is a collective also. It's not just one actor.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm going to come to Kate Keller. You're doing some really exciting stuff in the space. You run Amini AI, and you're seeking to leverage digital and AI technology to close the environmental data gap and support quality underwriting of climate risk insurance products. So just tell us very briefly what role you see or you're intending to play to inform underwriting of climate risk insurance on the continent using data that is central to that.
Thank you. I come a bit from a different angle because I come from a pure technology company, so no insurance background. It's actually not even our first market, and I always say that we got into insurance a little bit by accident. Our entire goal at Amini, I think Hope and Hassan have hinted to it, there is a huge data scarcity right now on the continent when it comes to environmental data. Data is there, but can be sitting in a minister's office, or satellite data can be too expensive for us to purchase when you need to do analytics at scale for an entire continent for hundreds of millions of smallholder farmers. So when we started building the company, we started thinking about, okay, how can we go about aggregating all the environmental data that are available to us and then build the core data infrastructure that our continent needs so that it can support many segments, including insurance. And that's when we started working with Aon, with the African Development Bank, also understanding how that environmental data could support better underwriting for insurance. Because once you have data, you have transparency, and transparency creates trust. If you're able to bring that transparency across the entire value chain, which historically has been hampered with a lack of transparency, then you will be able to bring trust and better investments, better support for the farmers. So when I say we got into insurance by accident, we did, but now we're looking into, now we have the data, we're supporting the entire value chain with satellite data, and then once you have the data, what can you do, how can you apply AI and machine learning as a tool to then go a step further and forecast?
That was going to be my next question, particularly for those of us who are novices. You know, AI, agriculture, data
Yes.
Help us break that down just very shortly. Help us explain what it is that you're doing and how that's different from anything else that we've seen prior to now.
So there is a myth about AI that is this thing that no one's understand, but actually you're all holding a phone right now, and that's the device that uses the most AI. So my mom uses AI, she doesn't even realizes it, right? But for me, any technology is an enabler, and for it to be useful, it has to be invisible. So how do you make data, AI, and every technology tools invisible to support better decision, more informed decision making? That's when you start generating that amount of data and building models that will then make sense of the data and also be able to forecast the risk, because we're talking about insurance, the risk of any of the decision you have to make. To give you an example, if you generate data around floods, droughts, then you're able to forecast floods and droughts based on historical data. The machine learning model will be able to take that data and then forecast what will happen in the next couple of months. So it's very simple.
And a very much needed service. So congratulations on all that you're doing. I'm going to come back to Michelle. And I'd just like for you to talk to us as an agricultural aggregator to help us. How is it that you intend to help farmers defray the cost of client acquisition to effectively deploy insurance solutions?
Thank you. And I think a lot of what Waneka Fund does to approach this has been mentioned. So one of the key approaches that we use is the bundled service that also actually helps to create demand, because when a farmer is seeing that they're getting their inputs and the insurance is part of that, then they value that more. The second approach that we use is, again, aggregation. So the entirety of the farmers we serve. So for example, this year in all our markets, we've served 4.4 million farmers, but we are only able to insure about 1.4. So, and with that, we are leveraging our economies of scale to be able to get the premium cost a bit lower, but we are still not providing entire coverage. And then for the future, one of the things that we're doing is we are creating a climate resilience insurance fund, which will be called Waneka Fund Re. And I think one of our partners, underwriting partners, are here. And we are hoping that through that, we are going to begin to deal with some of the challenges that I mentioned earlier, and with data, using open source, like what we learn in terms of what will create value for farmers, what will address like the temporal structural issues. Those will be open source, and we are hoping that when we provide that information out there, that will also incentivize more uptake for that. Yeah.
You talk about providing that information out there. Now, again, I'm coming to the table as an outsider looking in. Philosophically, there's a saying that if a tree falls in a forest, but there's nobody there to hear, did the tree make a sound? And the reason why I'm saying that is, collectively, you guys are doing amazing things. But how much of the instruments that you have available, the information that you've got, how much of that is really percolating all the way down to the grassroots? Because without effective communication, we're not going to be able to aggregate. We're not going to be able to have the numbers that we're talking about to drive ACRIFA, to drive the work that you're doing. So I'm going to open that up to the panel, and you just share with us what it is that you're doing, just very quickly, in a minute, to ensure that that information is distilled right down to those who need it the most. Who wants to go first?
I get excited by this because we started as an experiment and it is working. Okay, so one of the things, I mean, we're a reinsurer, and there are not many that do what we are doing. So what does that mean? We are now engaged at village level mobilization. We actually have to figure out who are the progressive local leaders. So for example, in Kenya, they have local governments. So we try and see who are the partners. We go down to the departments. We've gone to women groups. Right now, the ZEPRI Academy is training leaders of women groups and small farmers. And at that point, then it becomes their product. There is a buy-in. I think one of the problems we've had as insurance, and I'm happy that you're bringing it to the core of de-risking, especially in climate change, is that it was a foreign thing. It was too far. It was an elitist. And the example I usually give is that most of our markets, motor insurance is the largest class of business, and how many Africans own cars? So you find that we are irrelevant as an industry, and until we come down, and that's why you came down, that's why our penetration is at 1%. So you have to go to that level. So community mobilizers is key. In the markets we work in, because it is the Horn of Africa is a predominantly Muslim community where we are covering the pastoralists, you have to talk to the imams, you have to talk to the religious leaders, and they are really, really happy to listen. You have to do products that address their needs. So what we are doing is one of the first retakaful cover that we are doing in the region. You have to talk to regulators. On an annual basis, I bring regulators together. It wasn't my responsibility. But unless you're able to influence policy, then that is not going to happen. We got, for example, in Kenya, a dispensation that we could have NGOs become insurance agents, because usually an agent is supposed to have been trained and gotten a certification. But we train them for 8 hours or 72 hours. So you need to go down, you need to engage, you need to, capacity building is very, very key.
Okay.
So for me, that is really what has been working and what I think is going to be sustainable.
Thank you very much, Hope. I don't know if anybody else wants to take a stab at that, because after that, we're going to come back to Hassan Bashir.
Yeah,
Michelle.
I'd actually just build up on what she said by sharing one of the earliest lessons that we learned as One Acre Fund. And that was when you put the farmer at the center and design for the farmer's reality, not yours, the farmer's reality, then the value comes. And how One Acre Fund first grew, we had no marketing, no advertising budget. It was farmers singing about, oh my God, have you heard about this organization? And the reason I share this story is because it just illustrates the power of designing products that speak to the farmer's needs. And if, as the insurance sector, as you said, going down to the community, working with the farmers, understanding what they need in terms of insurance products, both in terms of the response but also pricing, the demand will come. And that's how everyone will hear about what you're doing at the grassroots level. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michelle. And we're going to come to Dr. Bashir here. Now, along with being an insurer, you've also chaired Kenya's Insurance Association, and you interact quite regularly with regulators and policymakers on behalf of the industry. So what is the regulator's view on the development of primary insurance market and local capacity, as well as cross-border risk sharing? And how can we all together collaborate on improving our retention of Africa's insurance premiums? Two questions in one, just very, very briefly.
Okay.
But again, question coming to you, not just as a broker, as an insurer, but also somebody who engages on a regular basis with policymakers.
Yes. Okay, so thank you. So generally, I will say my experience with regulators is very positive. Generally, regulators listen. If you ask them and put a challenge on them, they accept. I will say from an industry's point of view, we don't challenge them enough. We don't put enough challenge in front of regulators. So that's one. Africa, if I go a little bit general, Africa is fed and employed by the agri sector. That is well known. The development banks accept it, the government accepts it, the private sector accepts it. That's the largest sector, that's the growth sector. On average, the food on the table is from agri, yet we define them as a risky business. So first of all, I think from regulatory point of view, the view should be taken that agri is not risky, life depends on it. We must be able to manage and ensure that risk. In any case, 85% or more of the food on the table comes from there. 90% of employment in Africa is agri. So while we recognize that, we band and create regulations in the banking, insurance, pension micro funding and so on, to say you cannot invest more than this % in that risky band. So there's a conflict there. So I think regulators of all the major sectors, the funding sectors particularly, and the insurance sectors, should see that as an important area to change, which really is critical, and that change of attitude will have an impact. On the second question, if you remind me, was...
I was talking about your view on the development of primary insurance, of the primary insurance market, dealing with local capacity, cross-border risk sharing. Cross-border risk sharing. Okay, so that also hinges on regulation. We have 54 countries that have 54 acts. Of course, we have the CIMA region that has one regulator and so on, but generally, jurisdictions have different regulations, and the tendency is to say you can only insure here where you have a license. What that does is it limits the ability for primary insurers to share risk across borders. There are two important things about insurance that make it easier to insure something. One, you have the right data and you can price efficiently. And two, you can diversify the risk and avoid taking big risk in one place. You know, 10% risk, let's say in Kenya, for a crop insurance is more risk than 10% risk across 10 countries. So we have to learn that for regulators to allow the primary market to go across the border in terms of risk sharing. Thank you very much, Dr. Bashir. I'm going to come to Bridget next. How can you leverage Aon's experience, particularly in the area of analytics, to support the work that ACRIFA needs to do moving forward, just from your experience?
Absolutely. So in the last 10 years, we've probably invested well over $2 billion in developing analytics, which means that, look, analytics is like a relay race when it comes to what's useful for the market. The first thing you need is the primary observation, and so that's either weather data that exists from the government, past observation, claims that have been paid, or in the case that we're in right now, satellite imagery. So it's the source data. And then how do you translate that into something that's going to be able to assess risk and allow someone who you're asking to pledge part of their balance sheet and premium? How do you translate that into a language that says, okay, over this many years, this is what I think my risk will be, and this is how I'll make the bet. And Hassan's point is exactly right. You know, if you looked at an insurance policy or a reinsurance policy for, you know, any complex risk, it would look like a checkerboard. People would take, you know, there's the first layer of risk of the first $1 million, and 10 people divide that up. The opportunity of analytics is to say, hey, this one square on the checkerboard is only going to be this risky. And so therefore, this is why you should invest in this risk, because chances are it's going to work out well. And then we balance those things over the course of time. So, you know, the opportunity right now for Aon is what I mentioned to you before. We've got new sources of primary data like satellite imagery that allow us to have greater certainty in going to the markets. We've invested ourselves to make that source data even more predictable when it comes to what the potential payout would be. And now you have new demand drivers because of climate and because of regulation that are forcing companies that not only want to secure their supply chain, but want to secure a carbon-free supply chain or a lower carbon supply chain. And our job is to match those two things up. They've got a need and a risk, that's regulatory risk or consumer risk. What?
They've got a need and you've got a huge solution.
We do. And you know, we're better together is the real answer.
Excellent. We've almost run out of time, but I'm going to come to Kate. Aside from agriculture-based climate risk insurance, the big talk these days is about artificial intelligence. It's the rave. Everybody's talking about it. But I want to move forward maybe 4 or 5 years from now, when we'll probably be experiencing huge, vast changes in AI. I think we're really at the infancy stage at this point. The world is going to be a much different place 5 years from now. But apart from climate-based agriculture, what other applications do you see that have an immediate use for AI? Of course, everything, but what are the more immediate things that you're looking at the moment?
So one thing to bring back is that there is no AI if there is no data. So it actually all starts with the data. Data for us is really the start of every major economic transformation. And in the context of our continent, environmental data is the most important type of data that we need. Just like Acrifa is building the backbone for the insurance sector across the entire continent, we're also trying to build the backbone for the environmental data infrastructure for our entire continent. We're raising $1 billion here. We are launching a constellation of nanosatellites that's solely dedicated to monitoring environmental data in Africa. So there are some drastic measures, because we're running out of time, that need to be taken. One of the things I've not heard today is about our youth. Our youth is also one of our most precious resources, and they are very talented, very innovative. I have kids who are less than 25 years old, working in my company, building machine learning, like being data scientists, have already created 2 startups, brilliant technological minds who are building for their parents who are farmers or pastoralists. So if you ask me about where I see this going in 5 years, if us as Amini, we've done our job well and we've solved that environmental data scarcity for the continent, I see hundreds of thousands, if not millions of youth building on top of our platform, using our data to build more solutions that are adapted to their community and their countries.
Thank you very much, Kate. Well, for those of you in the audience, kindly give a very loud and resounding applause to our panelists, Hope Moreira, Hassan Bashir, Bridget Gaynor, Michelle Kagari, and Kate Kalloch. I honestly couldn't think of a better panel and group of panelists than what we've had early this morning. I really sincerely thank you. I've learned a lot as a moderator, and I hope that those in our audience and also those watching online have benefited tremendously from what it is that you have to share. Hassan Bashir, it looks like you have one last thing to say. We have Vice President Beth coming up to provide closing comments.
Yes.
I'm going to give you 30
Yes,
seconds.
1 minute.
30 seconds.
20 seconds. Okay.
30.
What's something important that you asked me that I didn't answer? Premium retention in Africa. 500 companies across the continent right now generally play the role of fronting, transit. They receive a register, they pass it to reinsurers in the international market. Generally, that premium goes right past the continent. Very important that the industry develop capacity to retain those dollars in the continent.
Thank you very much. And on that note, again, please give our panelists a warm round of applause. It now gives me, no, please stay on the platform. Don't run away. Don't run away. Stay on the platform. Stay on the platform, please. Stay on the platform. At this point, it now gives me tremendous, really immense pleasure, don't be in a hurry, to introduce a leader who, along with her team, has worked tirelessly to make this event happen. Please welcome the Vice President of Agriculture, Human and Social Development at the African Development Bank Group, Dr. Beth Dunford, to provide closing remarks and to help us chart the way forward on Acrifa. Thank you very much. The podium is yours, Dr. Dunford.
Well, thank you, Victor, for that introduction. And I'm really just honored to be here to sum up after this just a tremendously exciting panel of really you all are leading the charge on the continent. And Victor, I think that a lot of people heard the trees fall in the woods today. And so we need to make sure that we continue to amplify that. And I trust you're all joining me today and feeling very energized and really ready to see the rollout of the Climate Risk Insurance Facility for Adaptation to positively impact millions of lives and livelihoods. And so today's discussion really showcased the vital role of the facility and has illuminated the path ahead. So working together, I think we'll reach our goal to raise $1 billion. It's an important first step. It's a stepping stone towards the realization of the development and uptake of vital climate insurance solutions across the continent, and importantly, at the grassroots level and all levels across the continent. We have to make this work. So we heard today really the pathways to really make this happen, and I really acknowledge the tremendous efforts that have been made since African Development Bank Group President Adesina, alongside President Assoumani of the Union of Comoros, announced the facility at the Africa Climate Summit just a few months ago. So the market for insurance in Africa is massive, and this facility will bring the key players together to really make it easier, as we heard today, for scale to be achieved, to make connections between players for the insurance to reach more of the continent's most vulnerable. So this facility can be more impactful in advancing climate adaptation resilience across Africa when there's really strategic interplay between the insurance and finance sectors, and addressing the constraints and, importantly, boosting the capacity of local primary insurers, reinsurers to deliver appropriate, farmer-centric, appropriate solutions at scale, and that's the component of our mission. So as we continue to develop facility-ready investments and make the most of strategic partnerships, we're going to really be ramping up our efforts in donor investment, and really it's support from our global partners and donors that will be instrumental in propelling this facility forward. So just to close, I urge all of you to continue to remain engaged, involved, and importantly, proactive. It's your dedication that's the driving force that is transforming this facility from a concept into a reality. The Africa Climate Risk Insurance Facility for Adaptation has the potential to safeguard the future of millions of Africa's most vulnerable against the challenges posed by climate change. Thank you for your advocacy. Thank you for your allyship. Thank you for your support, and importantly, your commitment to this cause. Thank you.
On that note, once again, I'd like to say a very big thank you to everyone. Thank you for coming out early this morning, for being part of this very, very important discussion moving forward. Dr. Beth Dunford, to you and your team, thank you very much. Have a wonderful morning. Hello. Can
Representing the alternate co-chair, His Excellency Jakaya Kikwete, President Jakaya Kikwete, the former President of the Republic of Tanzania. We are about to begin now. I've been advised by the African Union that we are about to begin. So the event is live stream. So I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The recording has started because we also have online viewers. Welcome, those that are online. I think for now it is my pleasure to invite the high-level guests to come to the front. The African Union Commission, Director Nyambe, the African Union Commission, and then the high-level guests who are helping with the opening, led by the African Union Commission, and also the representative of the high-level panel co-chairs, the Republic of Senegal, the Kingdom of Netherlands, and Namibia, and also we have the presence of His Excellency President Masisi, who is the chair of the Water Change Makers as well. The other panelists that we are going to have, so we'll have 2 panels. The first one is the ones that I've just mentioned, and then you have the development partners and support institutions that are also going to take the panel at some point when we come to the panel discussion. So for now, may I invite the high-level panel co-chair representatives to come to the front. The Prince representing the Prime Minister from the Netherlands, you're welcome. Republic of Senegal, representing His Excellency President Macky Sall. I saw the representative just now, Republic of Senegal. If you can come to the front. Then also the president of the Botswana. I hear he's just within our midst. If you are able to usher him in, as well, he will be joining us shortly. Director General of FAO as well. May you kindly take your front seat. Director General of FAO. Global Director for the World Bank Water Practice. May you kindly join the front. Saroj, Suma, yes. African Union Commission. African Union Commission. Okay. Okay. The one I sent you, just call him. Okay, for now, I think we are going to start. The commission is going to be coming any time from now, so we are advised that we can start. There are also many events happening at the same time. So I will invite our IT to introduce the session with a video which summarizes Africa High-Level Panel Investment Action Plan. So if you can please play the video while the Director General of FAO, welcome sir, you may take your seat. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for, I hope we were able to hear. The sound was quite low. We have now the presence of the representative of the African Commission, who is the host for the event, Her Excellency Josepha Sako. There's some background noise because of the room next door, so I hope you don't mind. We also have translation for French as well, so I hope those that are bilingual or only French speaking are also able to understand. So I think for now, let me hand over the event to our hosts, the leader for Africa, who has really been behind this work on the Africa Water Investment Program. I do remember when I visited Her Excellency in her office in Addis Ababa, and she said, Alex, come here. And she said, I'm the only elected commissioner responsible for water on the continent. And we have to do what we can to mobilize as many partners as possible. And she promised that we will do whatever we can. She has a bid portfolio. The whole climate change COP for Africa is resting on her shoulders, but she's here. So, Commissioner, you've been a great leader. We are very grateful for your leadership. Would like you to invite you just a few introductory words to welcome the participants that are here, and then we can begin officially the session. So you're welcome, Commissioner, just to say a few introductory words. Thank you very much.
Thank you, the Master of Ceremony. Good morning to you all, Excellencies, and let me acknowledge the presence of His Royal Highness Prince James de Bourdon de Parme, if I pronounce it very well. He's a climate envoy and is representing His Excellency Mark Rutte and food security. This was a call from President Ruto to start implementing the Nairobi Declaration. As you are all aware, from the 4th to 6th of September, we had the the inaugural African Climate Summit for us to come about with a common position in the road to COP28. That's why we are here. So we are matching the two events together. Since our other states are not yet here, in the interest of time, and DG also has another pressing agenda, I would like to start with our panel, and I will invite DG to make the presentation of this, and then we go on discussion. Because we know that when we look at the impact of climate change, the agriculture sector is most affected. And mostly in Africa, we have serious problem with climate change. We have a lot of problem of malnutrition and hunger, undernourished population. So that this is the time for us also to come here and see how can our countries get access to finance, mostly on adapting this important sector that secures food security. And if we address this issue properly, we are also addressing issues of insecurity on the continent, issues of conflict on the continent. So without further ado, I will invite the director to come and deliver his keynote address so that we can start the discussion. Director, over to you.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear my sisters, Sako, EU Agriculture Commission. First of all, I would like to salute all the efforts EU made this said event happening. And also, after so many years, we work together. At this COP, first time, we put agriculture and food on the stage. Yesterday, we had a World Action on Agricultural Summit. So that's, I think also, I really appreciate our colleagues from UAE and AU, always the big collective voice, help us to get the mission. And of course, we got relevant donors to support our actions together. One of them is Netherlands, always with us with water issues. Of course, I challenge my friend from Netherlands. Your problem is too much water. And a lot of parts of the world, especially this part of the world, they're suffering water scarcity. So we have to turn the flooding to be the resource. And we need a science, we need an investment. So that's why I come here today. Africa have an immense potential for transformation and prosperity. Because if we don't think the opportunity and potential, why we need an investment? So any investment comes to the opportunity and potential and the prosperity. And of course, the humanity to have enough food and better food. We have abundant natural resources, land, water. I think Africa, if have enough investment on agro-food system and agro-infrastructure. If we talk about the infrastructure, it's too general. But you should start agro-infrastructure first, because you have to improve irrigation system, soil mapping, and cold chain storages, and others. And that's real, and now also broadband infrastructure in the rural areas. So, and also another advantage for Africa, you have your youngest continent. Population is also resources. It's also potential for the development. But you are lucky, you have a youngest continent. So don't consider population is a burden, like we did in China 40, 30 years ago. But now the first time in the history, during past 100 years, we are not declining our population. That is a real challenge. We are getting older, aging society. So you should take your advantage for next 30, 40 years, and you still keep the continent younger. And last but not least also, you have a huge market potential. Because Africa, you need a better life. You need a better food. You need a better environment. You need a green city. That's also the opportunity. So, and then come to how to get the opportunity turned to the investment. You need a science-based solution. That's why we support the AU and my colleagues to collect data. First, data evidence collection. Second, we need the capacity building there. Not only for the human resources, capacity building of the labs for food safety, because you already signed the free trade agreement and started 2 years ago, I remember. So how to make this free trade happening in Africa? Share the market, and you need the investment. And then come to the last point I want to say already, you need the focus on investment on R&D. Yeah, my colleagues from NAPA always promote, but if we don't have enough research now, and you will never have a chance to overcome the problems, challenges you're facing in the future. So solution is innovation and science technology. And last but not least, FAO, we are willing to work with you so many years, and I committed, fully committed. Whatever role I play, I always support Africa, friends, brothers, and sisters to build up the prosperous, bright future for Africa. I thank you, and I hope you have a good dialogue. Make use of FAO advantage as an international platform. And we established a World Food Forum for you to attract the scientists, investors, and the young people and startups. Every year, week of World Food Day, that week, we will have a regular program for this year. We had more than 6,500 participants, and about 60,000 online. So I hope the Africa members and organizations, you can use FAO, that platform, to promote. And also for the donors, investors, also you can come to use that forum. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Director, DG. for your very brilliant statement. And of course, we need to invest in science and technology and innovation. This is really a core. Without this, we will not have production and productivity. We will not address the problem of land degradation. We will not address the issue of resilience. So this is really an area that we really need. I would also like to take the opportunity of the presence of the World Bank representative, the director of the World Bank, to say that at the African Union, in terms of resilience, because we are here to talk about climate and climate change impact in agriculture as well. So we would like to say that we have a project to mitigate the impact of climate change in the Horn of Africa. Because we know that due to drought, now we have El Nino in the Horn of Africa and the southern region of Africa. So it's important for us to really go through actions on resilience. And we got a support from the World Bank for food system resilience in Eastern Africa and Southern Africa. So we believe that we are really going to implement that project properly. We have, at the African Union, we have opened a unit to follow up this project and make sure that we have a resilient agri-food system on the continent. So with this, I will invite my colleague and sister, Marie-Helena, to wrap up about our idea of financing agriculture before we open the other panel, which is the first panel that's for water. Thank you.
Thank you, Josefa, and good morning to all, Excellencies. Indeed, as my Director General of FAO said, we are in a continent full of potential, land, water, youth, but we are still importing more than $30 million per year that can be produced in Africa. And we are suffering the effects of climate change. And if we look at the perspective, only 4% of the ODA, all the investment goes to investment to climate and agriculture. And if you dig down to see how much goes to water, how much goes to the sector, is little to the immense potential we have and the challenge we have to face. What we need to do? We need to improve efficiency in the way we use water, in the way we use our soils, how we can have better seeds, how we can have more innovation, better investment, and capacity building. And this is what we are doing in FAO. We are supporting African Union to create the capacity to have the train at the country level, to have the projects we need, and to have the appropriate investment. That's the reason why we are working with World Bank, we are working with Africa Development Bank, Asia, just to name a few, how we can move at scale. Because what we are doing, we have success stories, but they are not at the scale we need to transform our agri-food system. We need science, we need innovation, we need investment, and we need political will. If our countries, our members, our governments, our head of states doesn't put the agriculture at the center of the investment and the decision, and considering that agriculture can bring the development of all the sectors, we are not reaching what we aim. To produce more, to produce with less, as the Director General of FAO used to say, produce more with less, produce better, because you need to produce nutritious food. It's not only to produce food, the food needs to be nutritious, and to have enough food for all. And this is what is in the Agenda 2063, how we can have an Africa that feeds the continent, but with nutritious food, and where everyone can have the minimum of 3 meals per day. To this, we need to work together. Cooperation is important. Collaboration is important. And let's work together. Let's move to the next stage we need to our continent. As an African, I feel part of the solution. I feel that I need to do my contribution. Not only me, the Director General of FAO, he says he's an African. African is his continent. Count on FAO to make you being forward in this endeavor. Thank you. And we have a leadership in African Union, my dear sister Josefa, that I think he sleeps every night thinking about how to make Africa to feed itself. Thank you. Thank you all.
Close this panel and then open the other one. So, the official one.
Yeah, the President Masisi and President William Ruto will be coming as well, and the chairperson at 12.
Okay, so
we can prepare the front row.
Okay. Let me close this one. So, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you, Excellency, for attending this high-level side event co-organized by African Union Commission and FAO to take forward Nairobi Declaration on Climate Finance and call to action and specifically examine climate finance for agriculture and food security. We believe that our conversation did not stop here. We are going to have our summit in February, and we are going to invite all of you to join us so that we can have a sound discussion, a side event to really tackle this issue of implementing our Nairobi Declaration. This is our common position, and we need to go fast. We need to go fast so that we can implement it, because our people are suffering, our farmers are suffering, and then we, with FAO, we are fully committed to engage with this agenda. So we will invite you in February to have a side event in Addis Ababa, where is our head of state headquarters, so that we can continue with our discussion and call the partners to also support us. We are going to end our Malabo Declaration is ending in 2025. The department, my department, Darbe, has already started engaging or kickstart with the post-Malabo Declaration. The post-Malabo Declaration, we want it to be bold, we want it to be more dynamic, so that we cover the gap that the Malabo Declaration, the 10 years Malabo Declaration did. We are looking forward to really have this 2024 to elaborate this important instrument, and is going to be participatory the way we did with the African Common Position during the food system, UN Food System Summit. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellence, Joseph Asako. And in case you're wondering what's happening, agriculture uses about 70 to 80% of water. So what the Commissioner has been trying to do here is to demonstrate that there cannot be an Africa Water Investment Program without food. They have to get together water, food, energy nexus. So this is why you had the technical representations from the leading UN agency on agriculture, FAO, and also opening the opportunity for another important process on the African continent led by heads of states, what's called the Malabo Declaration, with targets for increasing irrigated agriculture. That will not happen without what the high-level panel is now about to do to launch the Africa Water Investment Program. So thank you for your leadership. We are informed that, let me recognize the presence of the CEO for the African Development Agency, Her Excellency Nados Bekele, who has just come in. And I'm informed by the African protocol that heads of state will be coming in anytime soon. The official session, we will begin, starting with the high-level panel co-chairs. We already have the Prince from the Netherlands, representing Prime Minister Mark Rutte, who has also been a key leader on the Africa high-level panel, as well as the UN Water Conference. We know they were co-hosting with Tajikistan with a landmark outcome in over almost 50 years. And we have, of course, the former special envoy, who I want to recognize, of the Dutch, Henk Onvik. He's right there. He's been very much as well, been very part of this work from the very beginning of coming up with a panel in Africa, providing support to the African leadership, and of course he's now here to witness the event. So let me just now invite once again our IT to play the investment plan video, a summary of the investment plan. It played at the very beginning, but some of our partners were not here. So IT, if you're able to just show the video of a summary of the Africa Water Investment Plan. Not this one, please, the first one. With volume, please, this time. It was quite low last time. Thank you.